All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here talking real music. No, not really. Talking about a real big news story, sort of in the music world, I guess, and doing it in real time for a few real people out here, just like you and just like me. Some of you may have been following the story about Sean Diddy Combs, or when you hear this, what do? You just like, I don't want to even think about what this guy is up to. So they've sent detectives over to London because they have concerns that he may have abused some women over in the UK, in addition to here in the United States. It's a worldwide operation, apparently. The musician, who is 54 years old, whose real name is Sean Love Combs, is currently awaiting trial at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center in New York City on charges of sex trafficking, racketeering, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, I've heard from a few people who say, those movies like Sound of Freedom and City of Dreams, and that's slightly different in the sense that we don't know if, he trafficked anybody up from the border, but there's probably a good chance that happened, right? You would think, with millions of people unaccounted for and something like 400,000 children that just went, or 300, I don't know. It's either 3 or 400,000 children that went missing. They went missing. And it was a news story. And this is like incomprehensible that that's not like one of the biggest news stories ever reported. That, hey, we're importing all these people and then they're disappearing. These are kids. These are teenagers. These are 10-year-olds. If you want your heartstrings like ripped out, go watch this movie called City of Dreams that came out a few weeks ago. I went to see it in the theater, and at times it was almost unwatchable because the portrayal was just so realistic, and it was so frustrating that they would do this to human beings, kids, and ruin the lives of children, and now you've got hundreds of thousands, and then you've got Diddy, right? Entertainment mogul, darling of the media industrial complex. The charges, these charges, if they stick, I don't know. I think some people would think this guy should get the ultimate penalty for what he's done, which would be, no, it's not jail time. Look, they did this to Epstein. They put him in jail. And yeah, maybe prison culture will take care of things if Diddy ever went to jail. It is alleged that the rapper would coerce and manipulate victims into taking part in days-long performances of a disgusting and freaky nature. He actually called them freak-offs, okay? And it would be all day long. The victims would be coerced and manipulated. Diddy's associates would allegedly ply the victims with drugs to keep them compliant and would make threats against anyone refusing to engage, in claims similar to those made in a civil lawsuit brought by Diddy's ex-girlfriend, Cassie, last year. So this is a guy who's been in the mainstream, in the culture for quite some time. He would hang out with pretty much everyone, and apparently he did a lot over in the UK. Combs actually performed at the concert for Diana at Wembley, where he was hanging out with William and Harry backstage. It's just, I mean, this is global, and it's really sick. At one point, apparently, he joked about inviting William and Harry to these debauched parties. So there's a good chance they're in on it. There's a good chance that many people that you may even respect or like, at least, are in on this stuff. And the fact that our culture is rubbernecking to look the other way. Like, our media culture is just like, yeah, this is happening. Okay, so there's got to be another story. Let's talk about Trump. Let's talk about how weird Trump and JD Vance are. Let's just there's got to be something else we can talk about. And that's been really the modus operandi since the Epstein stuff. And when people point this out, that trafficking and these Hollywood people are involved, it's some crazy QAnon conspiracy theory, right? Everything's a conspiracy theory. And then when it actually happens, people go, oh, well, maybe those crazy conspiracy people were right, just like the safe and effective product that they continue to tell people maybe you shouldn't, that you probably don't need it, or they're trying to make excuses now compared to where we were at 3 or 4 years ago. They're trying to jump through hoops to try to not to say they're trying very hard to say that they were wrong because they can never admit that they're wrong. That's the crazy thing. Most people can say, you know what, I was wrong on that. I was deceived, or I just didn't have enough information. But with the human trafficking stuff, go watch. If you haven't seen The Sound of Freedom, you really need to go watch that movie. And City of Dreams, which is more about like the sweatshops but it's heartbreaking, gut wrenching. If this is happening in just one location, I mean, you'll lose your faith in humanity, and you'll be praying to God and asking God to just take you to heaven, like to get me out of here. When's the rapture coming? I want to get out because these people are psychos, as in the days of Noah, right? So, I mean, we're getting toward the end, and you see headlines like this. Now, I know most people don't do this, but what's surprising is there was a headline in New York City about somebody who was involved in these same kinds of parties. And the way the headlines read was like, yeah, he was involved with these parties, but, that's really not the problem. The problem is something else. Because most people are involved with these kinds of things. No, nobody I know, nobody I know is involved with this kind of stuff. This is sick and twisted. And the fact that it involves children, I mean, Jesus said something about a millstone, tie a millstone around his neck, right? At some point. I mean, but this trial will be the trial of the century, and people will talk about it, and, everybody will cover it, but they won't cover the epidemic, the war on children, whether it's the food, whether it's the safe and effective products, whether it's the human trafficking. You can go down the list, whether it's the education system, what they're being taught and indoctrinated with. I mean, children have become pawns in this world. Children used to be cherished and loved and appreciated, and people would try to protect children at all costs. But governments around the world, they have to be looking the other way. I mean, if they have all of this surveillance capability and all of this technology that knows what you're thinking about pretty much at any moment, we're getting to that point. They could easily track down these psychos and put them in jail, and if not, do something a little bit more permanent rather than just putting them in jail. I can have compassion on certain people doing certain things. This one, sorry, righteous indignation is what most people should feel when they read a story like the Sean Diddy Combs stuff. That's just beyond the pale. That's something that is for most people incomprehensible. So we have to do something about it, right? We have to stop it. And whether you like the presidential candidates or not, like if you dislike all of them, I would say there are better and worse pretty much in every election, and this one is pretty clear. There's two people who are devoted to stopping human trafficking. You could say the other one, oh, she did some investigating, or she was a prosecutor and she prosecuted a few of them. That's nice, but that's not the same as rounding them up and finding them and being on the ground, boots on the ground to stop this behavior. And you have to stop this from happening here in the United States. And the best thing you could do is just close that southern border. I mean, just send the National Guard and close it down. Take you 1 or 2 days to secure that border with the National Guard. You need to stop what's happening from destroying more children. That's the bottom line. So, anyway, folks, sorry the topic isn't light and fluffy today. In the world of geezer rock, there's not a lot happening. Last night I did a silly story about Loverboy, which was entertaining, but it just is pathetic as well. And I think people in this election year where there are serious issues, 400,000 kids are missing that came over, 400K or 300 and something K. I don't remember the exact number, but anything over like 50 is a problem. And we've got hundreds of thousands of children who have disappeared since being allowed to come into the country. And my guess is many of them are probably no longer alive, or they're working for people like Sean Diddy Combs. So that's my video. Godspeed. God protect this country and expose all of the darkness. We're seeing so much darkness that it's just hard to keep up. And I understand why people would want to unplug, but we have to pray for peace and sanity and an end to this stuff, which, again, I don't understand why people aren't more outraged by it.